As is probate sales, disclosures that executors must do. That's what we're talking about today. We'll get started right after this. I'm Kim Ward. I am the broker owner of Horizon Real Estate's Probate and Trust Help. And what we do, our team, we help with homes in probate or trust here in beautiful San Diego, California. Are you considering selling a probate home or even a home in a trust as is? I'm going to share with you exactly what you must do to protect yourself with disclosures here in California. Let's talk about Jane. She's kind of a case study. Jane called me and was talking with me about helping her through the process of preparing, marketing, and selling her father's home. During the process, after we talked, she got an offer from an investor. And it was a decent offer, a cash offer, and she took it. And you know what happened? She didn't know she was supposed to do disclosures from the California Association of Realtors documentation, and that's what would have protected her and the estate. And she got sued 6 months later because the buyers, once it started to rain, realized that there was puddling in the patio area and in some of the walkways, and she hadn't disclosed that that would happen, and she got sued. In California, when you are a personal representative of an estate, you need to complete a document that's called the Exempt Seller Disclosure document. It's pretty short, but the key thing is it has a question that says, are you, seller, aware of any of the following? And then it has a list of questions. If you are aware of any of those questions, you check yes, and then you need to provide an explanation. If you lived in the home with the decedent, you need to do more disclosures. There's a seller property questionnaire disclosure that is pretty long, lots of questions, and a transfer disclosure. And those are really important for you to complete because if you lived in the home, you know defects that may have happened, a roof that may have leaked, a water heater that may have issues, whatever. It could be as simple as right now we are helping an administrator with a condo of her sister's who's passed away, and the electric stove has one burner that doesn't work. Our client's aware of that, and we are recommending that she disclose it. Common things that people might miss on the disclosures could be foundation cracks. Sometimes we're unaware of these because if there's carpet on top of the concrete, how would we know unless it's very lifted, or even mold? And when we're talking about mold, it's a certain kind of mold, not necessarily what you might have in your shower. Recently, we were looking at a home, and as we opened up the cupboard doors, we saw some damage underneath the kitchen sink in that cabinet and two adjacent cabinets. And there was kind of a substance in one of them. We don't know what kind of mold that might be, but it's something that we would recommend our client disclose. Another thing could be airport traffic. If planes fly overhead of the property, we should have that in the disclosure. Seems like a buyer and their agent might see the planes and take that for granted, but it's important to have it in writing and signed by the buyer that they received the document, sharing with them any types of disclosures that would be important to them. So this is your as-is disclosure checklist. One thing you want to be disclosing is anything that might be happening with the roof. A person, Sarah, who was an executor of an estate, she knew that her father had had some issues with the roof leaking because she had been part of hiring people to patch it up. Well, she didn't disclose that, and it ended up costing her $15,000. Once the buyers moved in and they noticed a leak, then she had to pay for a new roof for those buyers. So the pro tip is, if you are wondering about it, if you remember your loved one discussing something like that, get a roof inspection, and that way you will have that documentation from a licensed roofer to disclose to your buyer. So as you can tell, there are things that are important during the preparation, marketing, and sale of your loved one's home. You want to make sure that you have someone helping you that has years of experience, knows how to guide you through all the different disclosures, because the ones that you neglect to complete correctly because you're not guided correctly, could really be costly to you and the estate. On top of these exempt seller disclosure, the transfer disclosure statement, or the SPQ, which is the seller property questionnaire, there are a bunch of other disclosures that are pretty much boilerplate, meaning that they just state certain things, such as there's a lead paint disclosure. If the property was built before 1978, chances are there's going to be lead-based paint somewhere in the home, because lead-based paint was frequently used before 1978. There also could be asbestos, so we need to have a disclosure that tells your buyer if you're concerned about asbestos anywhere, whether it's in the popcorn ceilings or maybe in the floor tiles, or sometimes around the chimney to the water heater, you're going to want to have a disclosure that's telling your buyer to get inspections for those things. There's a long document that's called the Statewide Buyer and Seller Advisory. In there, it gives all the different, a huge list of all the different inspections a buyer can get. So we make sure that your buyer signs that document, so that way, if they choose not to get certain inspections and later on something should show up after we close the sale and complete it, then they can't come back and say, you didn't tell us. One time, a few years ago, I did get a notice from an attorney that wanted to sue my company and my seller because the buyers claimed that we hadn't shared with them that in this particular building they had polybutylene piping, which is basically this plastic piping instead of copper. And, of course, right away I was like, did I make a mistake? Well, I didn't. I went back through the paperwork and I saw that yes, we had disclosed that there was polybutylene piping in this property. I sent that off to the attorney, and a few weeks later, that situation went away. As you can see, there's a lot that you need to be aware of, and the only way you're going to be aware of it is if you have the right real estate professional guiding you through this process. I hope this is of value to you. If you like it, please hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell button so you're notified of our upcoming videos next week. Thanks for watching.